See the class. Have you been on campus the whole time?
No, I just came.
All right, folks. Welcome to all of you. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me? Can you all hear me from your end?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Okay, awesome. Okay. All right. Thank you all for coming. So in just a few seconds, I'm going to just jump straight into the activity just like we planned. I see a couple of us here. There are still a lot of people who are not yet here, but we will start anyways for those of us that have been able to make it. So in just a few moments, I think those of us here can get to know each other briefly. And then I will begin with the main beat for today. So once again, I'd like to welcome all of you. It's good to see the excitement that folks have here to join the webinar today. And of course, there's a lot to learn, but we won't be able to learn everything today. We're just going to do a quick introduction, and we'll see how far we can go from here. So today is just supposed to be a very interactive session, meaning that you will have the opportunity to ask questions, to interact with me, and then with the rest of the folks that are here. So if you have a question, you should feel easy to ask. And then also, hopefully if I know the answer, I'll be able to help you, all right? So welcome all of you again. So as I already indicated in the poster that you saw, today this session is actually going to be the first one. There are two of them that we are doing. And today is just going to be the introduction. There's a lot that we can cover when it comes to learning Python. But what I'm trying to do with this bootcamp series is I see that a lot of people that have the excitement about learning Python, you know, people coming from so many areas. If you can hear me, please notify me. But there's also a lot of opportunity these days regarding, you know, what you can do with your digital skills that you have coming from different backgrounds. And what I seek to do with this bootcamp is, you know, at least once you begin with things like Python programming, it opens you up to a whole world of possibilities. So today, I'm just going to open your eyes to a whole lot of things that you can do. And I'm thinking and hoping that most of you have been able to install your Python on the system and you're ready to go. I shared a few resources, I think a day or two before, for those of us who may not have set up the system. But hopefully, if you haven't done that, we will be able to help you also do that. So a quick introduction, and then we will begin. All right, so this is me. Yes, I'll tell you a bit about how I got into Python and all that, but currently I'm meddling in all these areas, data science, I've done some of Django, and the common thing between the two is Python, right? And currently, I work with an organization that also trains software developers, front end, back end, and I work as a mentor. And then also when it comes to education using technology to educate, I've also meddled in that area. So if you wanted to talk about how you could use, for example, Google tools to administer your education, then it's something that we can also talk about. Yes. And so these are all areas that I am currently working in, and it's an area that we could talk about afterwards if you wanted to learn something more about it, or maybe you want to apply it to your business, and it's something that we can also talk about. So aside that, I like to play soccer and table tennis. So hopefully one day I get to meet one of you and we play at soccer or table tennis. Any players here? No players.
I
Okay.
play tennis and soccer.
You play soccer. You're okay. You're a soccer person. I've got one person here. Babake. Okay. Okay. Awesome. All right. And the thing about programming is that you have to also play alongside. Sometimes I overdo it. It's not good for me, but I do it anyway. All right. So that's enough about me. Yes. So when it comes to my journey with Python, yes, it's been a long journey that I took a couple of years. Francis, please mute your microphone. Yes. So, and I don't know the experience for you or how it's going to be for you, but when I started, there was a lot to consider and so many things to, explore. So there was a lot of confusion when I started, right? But the motivation was there. When I looked at the WhatsApp chat, I saw some people that were really motivated. They already are seeing the future of making big money with Python and stuff. And yeah, I had a similar motivation when I started, but I was more in the academic field of research. So, and I needed to do my work. And you won't be able to do everything with Excel. All right, you get limited with what you can do. So with Python being open source and free, I had the option to use that one. Okay, so that's where my motivation came from. I had to do my academic work and I needed to use a computational tool that's easily available. And that was Python for me. Okay, and when you begin the Python journey, there are a lot of, these days, there are a lot of Python distributions. What I mean by that is that you have the raw Python, right? But then you also have, based on where you are coming from, there are a couple of bundling that people have done, distributions we call them, that allow you to, they put together a common set of tools that work in a particular area. See, so that's the thing that you will also have to decide on whether you're going to maybe web development, data science, or something else. You would prefer a particular distribution over another one. Okay, and then the whole story with IDEs, which we're going to talk about very soon. All right, but once you've gone past that, the basics, okay, usually you want to find either a teacher, a course, or if you're a self-learner, then you want to find resources that are available online. And for some people, it's even very difficult deciding which of the available resources to use. Okay, so that's the thing that I hope that I can help you with. Okay, so but once you do that, I feel the remaining steps may be quite easy. Yeah, I wouldn't say it was so difficult for me because I had already done some programming before in in my undergrad studies. So that was, I put it somewhere in the middle. It wasn't too big a problem for me. Okay, but then once you've covered the basis, what happens is that you also need to practice, and it may involve finding projects that you're going to do and all that kind of thing. So I will hopefully help you to navigate that journey. But something that I also recommend, at some point you want to be able to showcase your work that you've done. And with platforms like GitHub, you have a way that you can show your work that you've done. Okay, so this is a whole lot of things that you need to be able to put together as part of your learning journey. Okay, so basically this is it for me in my learning experience. All right, so maybe I want to take a few turns and see why you are here to take this course. I want you to look at your end. There is a quick survey that I've launched. You can respond to it and let me see why you are here. What would it be for you when you take this course? I mean, when you know Python, how is it going to help you? And do you want to? Is it because you want to analyze some data with it, or you want to develop and build websites, or you want to use it as part of your academic research? What's your motivation for taking this course? I mean, this introduction, anyways. Yeah, so please help. Let's take the quick survey and see why people are doing what they are doing. Okay, I see some results coming in here. Yes, and I'll share the results with you very soon. Okay, so let me, if all of us have taken it, I'm just going to, I see a lot of people are looking forward to developing websites. Okay, yeah, and there's a lot of motivation here. Okay, there are a lot of people that signed up for today's session. I don't know whether it's because of internet, but hopefully they will join us. I do not want to go very quickly so that they won't be too far behind when they join. Okay, but nice. So let me share the results with you. Yeah, so you can see the results, how it looks like at the moment. All right, and this is basically the common thing. Oh, I can see people that are just also interested in showing off their skill. Yeah, it's part of it. You need to let someone know that you can do the job. So yeah, but it's also interesting that a lot of people, and Python is actually used in building a lot of applications. So those seem to be the big two. Yes, and I see that. Well, if you have this kind of motivation, then you surely are ready to learn Python. Okay, so great. In that case, I am able to continue. All right. So I was talking about this yesterday also. We have this mixture of people here on the platform. So it's such a big mixture that it's difficult to meet everybody's demands equally, right? But at least what I can see from here is that it's most of us here have a basic understanding of Python, all right? So my approach to this would be to cover the very basics, which I intended to do anyway in the beginning. All right, so for those of you that already know a bit, it would just be a quick refresher, and in the subsequent meetings, we can add on top of it. But yeah, this should be general enough. So let's see. Okay, so quickly, have you all installed Python? Do you all have an installation of Python on your system?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So if you already have that now, I was telling you I have several options. Okay, now if you are a newbie, I had a particular installation that I would recommend for you. But what we do once we have done the configuration, then I'll just go quickly over the basics of the language. Okay, I won't go too much today. So if you already have your Python installation, then it means we can begin to go. But if there's anybody that has issues with that, you can prompt me and we can help you with that. Okay. Okay, so it looks like we are set to dig in. All right, so let's begin. Let me give you a little trouble. Can anybody guess what's going on here? I've tried to make it as plain as possible in English. So if anybody can look at it and explain it in English, what's happening here, that would be really cool. Anybody wants to try? Oh, nobody. Yes. Seth, do you want to try? You said yes. But does it look familiar to anybody at all? Nobody?
It looks a little bit familiar.
It looks, yeah, okay. Okay.
I
Wow.
think you
Mhm.
are you are equating it to the response. For example, there is protest equal to true, and current salary equal to true. How do I say it now? You are equating the streams to the integers, and I don't know how to put it, but I think that's what is going on there.
Okay, that's a good attempt. Yeah, there's some kind of equation going on there, but it has a proper way we talk about it. It's actually an assignment, and we'll look at that later on. Anyways, so if you don't understand this by the end, my hope is that you'll be able to understand this block of code here. All right, so let me just jump into it. All right, so if you don't already have Python installed, again, this is a quick reference for you, and this one is a cool IDE. Now, let me jump into the code and show you one or two things that can be very helpful to you. Okay, this is for those of you that are learning to do data analytics. You can stay here. All right, you can install the full version of Anaconda, or you can just use Miniconda. I usually prefer Miniconda because it's smaller, but then you have to use the console to launch your application and all that stuff. But if you install Miniconda, Anaconda, the full version, it has a graphical user interface, but it takes a lot of system resources. Okay, so that's it. And as for the IDEs, there are a lot of them. Idle comes by default. If you install your Python and you don't want to install an additional IDE, you can just use idle. Okay, and let me show you a bit about the features that are built into idle. I think it's really cool. You get to see everything that Python has to offer without necessarily. Okay, so this is how it looks like. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I want to just change the font and make it a bit bigger. So, okay. All right, so this is the basic IDE that comes installed if you just install Python directly from python.org. And with this, you can just start typing and coding, all right? And that's all. Very simple, but it also has a few things hidden in there. For example, if you went to the IDE help, it has a lot of help topics that are built into it that you can use. Okay, it also has some cool demos built into it that let me see if I can show you. It's just a motivation for give me a second. Okay, yes, let me take an example here. You see, this is a big block of code here, in a chunk of code in Python, and you can just run it here. So for those of you that may be engineers and thinking of what Python can do, you can look at this demo here, and this is a drawing that's some code have been written to display. Okay, I think it's a good source of inspiration for what you can do with Python. Okay, so and it got a lot more that you can play with if you wanted to just look at this. There's another animation here too that you can see. This is, I think, the moon and the a planet, right? The Earth going around the sun. Okay, so anyways, that's the idle IDE that is built into Python. Okay, very simple and built into Python. But I use something else, and okay, whatever you choose is up to you. What I'm going to be using for the tutorial is Spider. It's built into Anaconda by default. When you install either Anaconda or Miniconda, you would get that for free. Okay, so for those of you that are looking at data science, you might want to use that. So we don't have any troubles at this point, right? So it's going to be interactive. So when you have a question, just prompt me. Okay, okay, Benjamin, I want to hear your question.
Yes, thank you for the lecture. I just like it for us to have the recorded version at the end of the session. This session.
Can you come again? I didn't fully get your question.
Well, yeah, what I mean is, can we get the recorded lecture after this the session?
Oh, by all means, once we are done, the recording will be made available. So you should get.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. All right. So if there's no more, then we can continue. Okay, so I've already taken the survey, and I just want to quickly go over this. There's a lot that you can do with Python, all right? And this is already stated on their website. So if you're not sure and these listings here are modules and packages that have been built around. So these are a collection of codes that have been built on top of the plain Python that we have. So again, quickly looking at it, these two areas, scientific and numeric computing, has been my background where I have used Python the most. And then in the area of web development also, that's where I have used Python. Okay, so and if you want to extend it some more, and even in the data science area, there's web scraping. If any of you have heard of it before, you use a package like Scrapy that allows you to scout the internet, find websites that you want to scrape data from, and it gives you a really powerful engine for doing that. There's a lot of automation that you can also do with Python. And then we've talked about websites, web applications, but then there's also those of you that are interested in data science, AI, and the rest. Python is used a lot over there. Okay, so why Python? Why not some other programming language? Well, it gives a lot for free. And I'm sure those of you that are running here to do Python have already thought about it and have considered your gains for doing Python. But their website also sells it very well. Okay, it tells you that it's very powerful, it's fast, it plays well with others, it runs everywhere. And for beginners, I think the best selling point that they advertise on their website is the fact that it's easy to learn and it's also open source. Okay, so I already told you about how I got into Python. Okay, so you already know why we are doing Python. Now, when I opened idle for you, I showed you a prompt where you can type, your commands and run Python. And that is the thing we call interactive, computing. So Python allows you to use it like just a calculator. Okay, so all the instructions that we write, the code that we write, we run it from our shell or the command prompt. And this is the gateway to the Python interpreter. Basically, what it means is that when you type a prompt here, it's evaluated and then it's executed. The output is also immediately printed to the screen as we're going to do. So if you're not even comfortable with the command prompt, because of programming in Python, over time, you're going to get used to this kind of console that we have here, right? So, and this console also contains a lot of information about Python. Usually you see the version, the location of Python that you have, and good. So let me show you something here and go into my environment. Can you see my screen? So currently, this is my IDE that I prefer to use for giving tutorials like this, because then I can show you the code on the left side. At the same time, I can show you the results on the right side. Okay, so like you were seeing, I'm running Python 9.5. And if you were to type help, it tells you to type this help as a function. Now let's go into it and see. There's a lot of documentation, and the reason I'm going over this portion is also that you can already find a lot of help just by opening Python itself without going around the web looking for additional information. Okay, and you can see in the result that I got here, it says that you can type these keywords here and you can get a lot of information. So for example, if you wanted to find a list of Python modules that have been installed, or maybe a list, let me choose a simple one. Let's say a list of the symbols that are available in Python. This is a list of them. So over here, you could learn a lot of things already. And do these symbols look familiar to you? Yes, they're basically the mathematical symbols that we use in our everyday computations, but some of them have been combined in a way that gives them special meanings. And down the line, we will look at what these stands for. There are also things like keywords. Okay, so we will come to them later down the line, but I'm introducing you to this feature in the Python interpreter that allows you to explore and learn. All right. So this is a powerful tool that you have to learn to use if you want to advance quickly in your study of the Python programming language. So what we are doing basically now says know your ID, okay, know the environment that you're working in. Okay, so basically this is a few words, okay. Can you hear me from your side? Okay, I think I'm okay, great. All right. So number one, there are a few keywords which I've shown you already. There's also a certain way that you need to construct your Python code in order for it to make sense to your interpreter. And then you also need to know the different ways in which you can run code. Sometimes you can just use the interpreter as an interactive computing engine, or you might want to have a bundle of code that you want to execute, which you can also do from the interpreter, the console that I showed you. All right, but how does a typical Python code look like? Okay, and so when it comes to the vocabulary, which I showed you earlier on, there are a couple of words that make sense for your Python interpreter, which you need to know. Okay, so these keywords here are things that have special meaning to Python. Okay, and for now, I just would say take note of how they work. Okay, just take note of how they work, and as we go on, when their use become relevant, I will let you know. But what it means is that later on, when we talk about variables, you would see that there's a special place for these words, and you cannot use them in a different way than what Python permits. Okay, so once you have it, it's like learning a language that we usually is a language, right? And then the words, you can also learn the vocabulary, the grammar, meaning that you can now learn how to put the words together to form meaningful sentences. Okay, are we good at this point? I don't want to make it too long a talk. Are we good? Does it make sense so far? Okay, one person says it makes sense. Two. Okay, then I can continue. All right. So let me give you another quick quiz. Okay, so see those who are following. I haven't given you that information, but I just want to see those who are already learning by themselves. So I'll give you a quick general knowledge question. and see, without having mentioned them, if anybody can correctly guess them. So here comes your quiz. It's just a general knowledge quiz, a bit about Python, and see whether you've done some of your homework already. Okay, so someone has a question. Let me quickly address that, and then please, if you can see the quiz, attempt it and let me see what your performance will look like. So what are the similarities between C#, HTML, and Python? Okay, so these are all programming languages, but these are employed in different use cases. I think the closest resemblance to what their purpose might be, C# and Python may be closer in purpose than HTML, right? So HTML is specifically for the web, and it does nothing more than just to specify the way content, web documents should be constructed. Okay, so if you know HTML, the only thing you know is you just know how to format a web document. And there is a detailed protocol on how, since the website, the www was created, we needed a way to communicate information. So HTML is just that standard that allows you to format web documents. And it's just another plain text document, nothing more. Okay, so that's your HTML. But C# and Python, they are also general purpose programming languages that extend beyond just, what HTML does. So Benjamin, I hope that this helps you clarify the difference between these three. Does it help? So if you're looking at it in another way, I mean, you can do with HTML what Python can do, right? But perhaps you could do with Python what HTML can do. Okay, so okay, I've got a few people taking the quiz, and okay, many people are getting the first question wrong. Then okay, so there are more people getting it wrong than getting it right. And then the second question, okay, almost everyone is getting the second question right. Okay, number three too, almost everyone is getting it right. In fact, if you're not getting it right, it means you are not making good use of internet. Because unless you want to argue that you are being very faithful. Yeah. Okay, and then the last question. All right, people are struggling with this one. So okay, so those who haven't participated, I'm just gonna leave it here for a few moments and I'll go on. Yeah. So let me end the poll and then answer. Let's share the answers together. So those of you now you can see the result. Is it actually 1991? And the extension for a Python file is .py. Okay. And of course, it was Guido van Rossum. Then, yes, the third part is, the fourth part is even the most important for me. You do not need an IDE before you can write Python code. Okay, just like for HTML also, you do not, you just, if you know how to format the document properly, you can just take a plain text. You see, when you go to your computer, you right click, you can just see, and then you can write your Python code. All right, so you do not need an IDE, but as you begin to write in plain text format, you would begin to realize the importance of an IDE, because it saves you a lot of time, and you can learn a lot also from using an IDE. So while you don't need an IDE to be able to write Python code, it's very helpful in your learning journey. Otherwise, it takes you too much time. Okay. Question 1. Oh, my bad. I think I made a mistake with that. Okay, forgive me. Yes, there's a mistake with that. Yeah. Thank you for spotting that. Okay, so I'm going to jump into the IDE very soon, but the reason I'm showing you a few slides is so that we can just think through things a bit. So you can see I talked about the vocabulary of the language, and then I quickly touched on the grammar. Okay. You need to be able to put the words together in a certain order, in a certain structure, in order to make your code work. So the interpreter is also built in a way that it helps you, so that if you do not obey the rules of the language, it would rightly prompt you. So you can see that it prompts you with the kind of mistake that you are doing, and then it tells you whenever possible the kind of mistake that you've done. All right, so what should be the proper thing? Now, there are, depending on your version of Python that you're using, this line here may not necessarily be wrong, because Python 2 actually allows you to do something like this. Okay, but in the version of Python that we are using, and I already spoke about it, we cannot do that. Okay, so let me clear this screen. Let me clear the screen, and then we will start something anew. Okay, so remember, you might see some code differences. Now, I'm just going to recommend, Python has improved so much. Unless there is a specific reason why you have to go back to Python 2, just stick with Python 3 and just go ahead. All right, so with Python 3, that's how things work. Okay, you need the parenthesis. Okay, so what we saw and the error that the computer was prompting us is something that has to do with the syntax, okay, which we're going to go a little more into detail over here. So initially, this error messages can be very frustrating, but once you get comfortable with how to navigate, in fact, you can learn a lot about programming very quickly from the error console that you get. So it's a place too that I want to advise all of us to keep an eye on when we are learning the language. Okay. All right, so I've talked briefly about it. If you're using a very good IDE, there's a lot of help that is built into it, which you can use already. I've shown you. There are several inbuilt functions also that can help us to, for example, with my IDE, I could simply type something like this, and I will get information about a data type called int. So I hope you saw what I typed. Let me do it again. Okay. This here I type out, explain these things later on, but this is a data type, okay, and I want some information on it. I can simply type this, or well, I didn't type it right. Okay, so I didn't have to leave any space there. And then what information I get here is a lot, but if you take time to break it down, you can see the first line talks about init signature. It tells us a basic definition of what this is. It provides us some information about what this int does. Okay, it tells us that it's an integer. You can specify the base, and what it produces is basically an integer. All right. So it says that it converts a number or string to an integer, or it will return 0 if no arguments are given. And this information alone here can teach you so much about this. So this is how you might just use it, say int. And if I put something like this into it, you see that it's converted into an integer. Basically, the mathematical integer that we need, we all know doesn't have decimal points. And I'll come later to these things. But again, the point of what I'm saying here is accessing help can also be very easy with Python. And for a basic class, you need to know all these inside and of Python so that you can learn speedily. Okay. So any questions so far? Any confusion? Are we good? Is everyone okay? Please ask me questions if you don't understand. Okay, looks like I have one question here. Okay, so let's continue then. So now we're going to get into something a little more sophisticated. And with this, we launch into why you might write a Python program and how to go about it. So the whole thing about programming is it's not just to write some code that will do something by itself magically. So there is a thought and a workflow that goes into it. If you ma, I will get to you soon on your question. All right, but let me quickly explain this point, and then we'll look at your question. So when you think about a program, maybe somebody can help me define what a program is. But if you have any thinking on what a program is, I've given you a simple workflow here. Initially, I showed you some code, and I asked someone to try and explain it. They made a good attempt, but they got stuck. Okay, so if you're thinking about a program, does anybody have any explanation for what a program is? Oh, please talk to me. Oh, I don't want to be the one talking the whole time. Otherwise, it's very easy to think you've learned, but you haven't learned anything. Anybody? Okay, I'll just go ahead. All right, so when you think about a program, you have a certain sequence of steps, instructions that you want to perform. In fact, in actual sense, all the things that we want to do that we program into a computer, we should be able to do them by ourselves if we sat down to do it, we should be able to do. Only it takes so much time and effort to actually do it. But the computer can do that repetitively. So our goal as people who write computer programs is to first of all sit down and design a solution for the problem that we are trying to solve with code. And then once we do it clearly, the computer will be able to execute it for us every single time. Okay, so the code that I showed you at the beginning was a program that's trying to solve a problem. So we have a company, right? The employees began to go on rampage. They said that they wanted more money, all right? And but as you know, manager, I don't feel everybody deserves to go on rampage asking for more money. And of course, you don't want to, you know, give everybody increment just because they made a lot of noise, right? So I want to write a simple program to see which people I should pay attention to and which people I should ignore or deal with very mercilessly. So what would be my first point of entry on a problem like this? And this is a very, very simple solution. You can make it as complex as you want, but I'm going to address each one of the employees one by one, okay? So first of all, check to see the employee's salary, the one that is complaining, and see if they have a salary greater than, you know, 1.5 thousand, right? So there's 1,500 or what? Yeah. Immediately they have salary bigger than this because we are not willing to pay any more than this. Just tell them that they are not, you know, qualified to do this kind of demonstration that they are doing. If they continue to do it, we'll just issue them a termination warning, and then we stop over there. All right. But for those that are earning less, we are willing to negotiate with them. Okay. And there are some people that are very easy to satisfy. Okay. Maybe you negotiate with them and add maybe just $10 and they are happy, they will stop protesting. So for such people, if they stop protesting, we are fine. We'll just stop there. But if they continue protesting after we negotiate and give them some increments, okay, we may come back and negotiate again, right? Until they stop complaining, you know. So that's the whole point. I mean, it looks like I haven't even added that bit of information that I provided, but this is just a rough sketch of, you know, a problem that we are trying to deal with in code. Okay, so you see there's a lot of thinking that go into a program. And this is the code again that I showed you. Okay, somebody that is already experienced with code. So based on the explanation that I gave you, do you think that this is sufficient? And I'm just going to run through this. You see, by the time I run through this line of code for you, I've already covered a lot of Python things for you. You see, and so this first line, one of our friends was trying to explain. This is what you would call an assignment in Python, right? So this is a value. We'll talk about that very soon. This is a reference to this value on the right. Okay, so we properly we call them variables. Okay, so this value is giving this reference, and I'll show you why it's important that we have to do this thing. Okay, and the same thing here. This line too might not make full sense. This line down here might not make full sense, but I will also go into it and explain to you. Okay, so you see the diagram that I showed you. That first part says, is the salary less than 1.5K? See, that's what I've translated to code here, something like that. Let's see, and even though it looks reversed here, it's basically the same problem that I'm trying to solve. Okay, so I check immediately they have more salary than this ceiling, which we don't want to pay any more than. We issue them a warning. Okay, and that at that point we just stop. We don't do anything else. Otherwise, okay, indicated by this part. Now we want to think of something. Once they have, as long as their money is less than 5,000, 1,500, and okay, we want to check again if they are protesting and see if they are protesting. Then we want to maybe negotiate with them, and then maybe do some increments, right? And then calculate their new salary. Then we pay them their new salary, and then we go on. If they don't protest, even though their salary is less than 1,500, I think we should just thank God, right? Because these are people not too hard to please. So let's get into the code and actually run this to see whether it makes sense. Okay. So, all right. So I have the code already here that I want to show you. Yes. So let me run it in bits, okay, so that you can see. And this IDE that I'm using, if you're using the Tony IDE tool, it has something they call the variable explorer, and you can see, all right, some names right here on this side. It shows you the variables that we created, the type of data, okay, and then the values that I have given to them, all right. And then, well, I mean, who can tell the output of this line already? If current salary is greater or equal to 1,500, what do we expect? Do we expect a print message or no? Do we expect the message to print based on the values that we have up there?
Yes.
Yes.
Are you sure? Look at it again. What is the current salary?
500.
It's 500. And then this test is saying if the current salary is greater or equal to 1,005, then issue a message. So do you think our message is going to be issued? Okay, let me run it for you.
No.
No. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so you see, I ran the code, but nothing is printed to the screen. Okay, if it was the other way around, let me change it for you to see. If it was less or equal to, then you would see the output here. Do you see that the output is the one on this line? Okay, that has been printed for us. Okay, so basically that's the thinking of a program. Otherwise, let me look at this second part. Okay, so can you see what's going on here? We said that as long as the salary is less than 1,500, check to see if they are still protesting, and then just say something nice to them. Okay, then give them a small increment. So you can see the output here. There was a small increment to the original one, okay, because we added 100, and then we did the check again, but they were still protesting. Do you see that we haven't changed this value? It's still true, right? We didn't do anything with it, so they are still protesting. And then we come again and say, let's increase your salary a bit again, and then it goes up. They are still protesting. We increase it again, they are still protesting until we reach 1,500, and then we won't even give them room to protest, because at that point, whether they protest or not, we don't care. All right, so does it make sense what I'm showing you?
Yes, sir.
Ask me a question. This is Python. Okay. So I can go ahead. Okay, so this is basically what I was showing you. Okay, now I could expand this, and I'm jumping you into a lot of Python, all right, before I come and break it down. And like I said, by the time I finish showing you these two lines of code, the different versions of the same code, you would see a lot of things in Python already. So I have talked about variables, right? I've talked about values, if you remembered. I have talked about, yeah, okay, those two. I've talked briefly also about decision making. You can see how you make decisions in code. Okay, so I've talked also briefly about that. Now I'm adding a few elements to what we did before and see what it looks like. So let me show you that version also. Okay, so let me clear the screen, and I have another file that I'm going to open to show you. Okay, so that one too is here. Now, if you look at this particular solution, you see that a lot has changed. So don't worry too much your head over these things, but I want to show you. So what is happening here is that now, as you solve more complex problems, there is this thing about reusing code that you've written already. See, so we want to bring in some resources that we've already used, and it's a very important programming design that all the programming languages try to make provision for, that we have to find a way to reuse code, because once you program for some time, you realize how painful it is to keep writing the same code over and over. And then you see, I made also some changes here. Then I introduced something new. You can see, did you see this before, this def? So
No.
yes, you didn't see that before. So who can guess what that is doing, if you're following? Who can guess what that is doing?
You're calling a function.
Oh, okay, great. So what is the function doing? See, you have a bit of Python, so you can help us.
You are importing the evidence. Maybe you wrote a code somewhere, so it's calling that code in.
Okay, so you see, in the earlier version that I showed you, in the simple solution, I would be printing a message manually all the time. Okay, but now if you see this message here, if I want to print this message in some other places, I have to copy all this code and go and reuse it there. But I try to change it and put it here because I want to be able to reuse it. So what this allows me to do, and this is for a later session, but I'm showing you all the bits and pieces that go into a program before we even think of diving deep into it. So you have a big picture of what a program looks like. And then when you are looking at now you sit down and then you tackle the small parts, you know what it is that you are doing. It helps you to actually tackle problems more meaningfully. Okay, so yes, you're right. It's a function. It's just a block of code that I've grouped together to allow me to reuse it later on. Okay, so we call it a function. So I defined a small function here. So let me just run up to this point. Okay, everything works fine. And like you said, once you define a function, you can use it. And in the language of programming, we say you call it, all right? So I can call that function, issue warning. So anytime I want to issue a warning, I don't have to write all those lines. I can just call that function. You see, as many times as I call it, the behavior is still the same. Okay, so I have a block of code that I can reuse anytime. Okay, so as usual, I do my check, and if it meets the condition, I issue a warning. Okay, fortunately this time it doesn't meet the condition, so I leave it. Okay, now I have changed a bit of the program design that I had in the first one. See, I made it a little more sophisticated. And can you notice anything that has changed since this place? I mean, if you look at this portion, okay, and then this portion, a lot has changed, right? And the reason I'm asking you is also one of the skills that you have to develop as you program is you need to have a keen eye for observing. Okay, that's so you can see I made some slight modifications here. All right. And what is it? I have tried to, this is our current salary. It's a variable, okay, that I'm printing here. I'll forgive you the detail right now, but this whole thing, I've also tried to, initially when we did the increment, we just gave it a single value, right? So every time we did a negotiation, just increase it by 100. But in a practical world, things don't happen like that, right? So when you go and sit down and do a negotiation, the outcome can be a bit random, right? Yes, manager is trying to reduce cost. The employee is trying to increase their earnings. So we have a bit of a haggle here, and we don't know who is going to win. But so I think it's a random event, okay? So what happens is, let's say the increment is just going to be a random number. So you see, that's the reason why I'm trying to reuse a resource that's already available. And I'll show you how this it's a random integer. See the way it behaves. Oh, I didn't type it correctly. So you can see another error here that I was talking about. So the interpreter is helping you. Now it doesn't know this name. So I need to come and correct it. And let's see. Yes. Now I've made another error. Okay. So based on the way this piece of code has been defined, it has the requirements before it runs. And so I'll come back to this point later on and explain to you, but it requires 2 inputs. Okay, so if I type my random int, I need to specify 2 inputs. So what I'm saying is that just give me any number between these 2 inputs. Let's say any number between 0 and 10. And then it's happy to do it. If I run it again, see, it gave me 0 this time, gave me 2, it's randomly, this time 4, this time 9. Okay, so what I'm saying is that at this point, when we do the negotiation, maybe it's going to be no increment at all, or we get some increment, but management is not ready to pay more than 300. So it can be anything between these 2 ranges. Okay, then we increase the salary by the increment. Okay, and then we give them their salary, say, hey, this is your new salary, go and enjoy it. Okay, now we saw that even after the negotiations, some employees might still go and again make noise and say this is too small, we want some more money. Okay, so after the negotiation, we want to see whether there is still a protest. Okay, and I think that is also random, right? So you see, this one is just between 0 and 1. Now I'll talk about this also. You see, for this one, it's always going to be between 0 and 1, nothing more. So, but it's going to be random. One time it's going to be 0, other times it's going to be 1. Okay, yeah. And if you already know a bit about true or false, okay, we can use 0 for false and 1 for true. It's binary, so binary data type. Okay, I'm sure you've learned this already. Yes, that's why I'm using 0 and 1 for that. So after the salary increment, okay, maybe there's going to be a protest. If it happens, well, let's go ahead and then check. So tying everything together, I'm going to run everything now we have and see what the output is. So let me clear my screen here and see what happens. Okay, so this didn't take long at all. We started with a salary of 5,000 and then we did a negotiation. After the negotiation, they were not happy. So, oh, they were happy. So we just stopped there. Nothing happens again. All right. So if I run this code from scratch, it might go another way. We don't expect to see the same result because of the random thing that I put in. You see, this time too, it has gone another way and no one is complaining. If we keep running this a couple of times, we will get different results. Okay. Okay. So again, you can see that the solution may not necessarily be smart, but the point I'm making is that a program has to be designed. Okay, you need to think about your solution, all right, before anything makes sense. So so far what we've done, does anybody want to ask a question? This is a very high level view of programming. Any question? Yes, so if you or what's the name? You said when you typed int, you got syntax error. So what you typed was not exactly what the computer expected. See, so this is what you typed. You typed capital. See, it's, okay, so you see the difference between what you typed and what I typed. So the words are important. You used capital I, right? And I use small I. You can see they are not the same thing. So this is known, all right? But this one is not known. Okay, so it's a name that Python doesn't. So I'll talk about variables, the names. Okay, very quickly. Yeah, they are case sensitive. You cannot play with the names. You cannot mess it up. You need to use the correct names or you would always get into trouble. Okay. All right. So let me summarize quickly everything that I've talked about. See, you have a sequence of instructions. There's an input. There's also an output. Now, sometimes you just want to complete something step by step, okay? And that's all. Other times you want to complete a series of steps based on some conditions. Okay, that's what we have, conditional execution. If it's just straight, you just go, okay, take the input, multiply it by 2, and then give us the output. Or you can say, take the input, check if it's greater than a certain number. If it is, do something else with it, and then give us the output. So that will be your conditional execution. Sometimes you don't want to do any conditional execution. You just want to do something repetitively for maybe a number of times. All right. You want to say hello 10 times. Okay. For example, let's say that all that we want to do is to say hello 10 times. So and that's what I'm showing you. This is one way. Okay. And you can see that I have said hello 10 times on the screen. Okay. And that's what we talk about, repetitive or repeated execution. Okay, so Python has a construct for doing that, and in other programming languages they are also there. Okay, then finally, you see I talked about reusing code. So when I did the import, otherwise for everything that you do, you have to write the code by yourself. You see, sometimes you are handling some kind of data. They've already provided some base code that you can reuse. You don't have to write it from scratch. You can use existing ones. So we'll look at this later on in other lessons. And then finally, when there is an error, okay, how do you handle it? Okay, you need to know how to handle when things go wrong. In our solution, we didn't really tackle that, but there is also a specialized class for error handling. Okay, so basically these are the things that you have to have in mind when you're running a program. And with this, you can see that you've learned everything there is to know, at least at a basic level in Python. You have finished with Python. Who agrees with me? Oh, you don't agree? Are you here? I want to hear from you. Who agrees with me that with this you have finished? Or you want some more?
You want everything.
You want everything. What else? How do you know I haven't given you everything?
There are some the variables that the functions. That's not all the functions actually.
That's not all. How do you know? How do you know that's not all?
It showed us all the functions, and this was just like few things that you just used.
Okay, yes, actually there's more. There's more. But I want to make sure that some are complete beginners. So I want to make sure that I'm taking care of the complete beginners, give them a high level view of the programming. Okay, that's why I have to go that far. Okay, so for those of you who are a bit familiar, you know that there is more. Okay, so yeah, you're right on that. Okay, thank you for that. So if there's no questions now, let me take a little more time and dive into some basic things that I showed you earlier on. Okay. Now, the reason why I did all the things that I did, and let me close this portion. Okay. Variables. And let me clear the memory. Okay, so good. Now you can, when you go into the IDE, okay, so for those of you who use Python from maybe, let's say, the interactive prompt, you know, you can have access to it from many places. Okay, let's say this is your IDE. Okay, it's not mine. You can still have access to Python, however it is. So you can do all your computations. You can do 2 + 2, and it will tell you the answer. But if you want to do another, you want to use a result, you can use it. It's lost and gone. Okay, so when you do things like this, maybe square root of, well, okay, we don't have square roots here, but let me just do something like this. Okay, so this is a mathematical operation that I've done, but the result is lost. Okay, it's like taking your camera and shooting a video and not saving it on your phone. It's just what I have done, and that's why we have variables. And to save your result on your phone, like shooting from a camera, you need to do the assignment, which is the variable name equals something. So let's say 2 is what equals 2 plus 5. You see, now you didn't see the result on the screen because unlike the first time, the result has been saved to the variable called X. So if I want to see the result of the calculation, I can now look for it in X. And that's the whole thing about variables. Okay, that's the whole thing about variables. So you need a value, or it can be the value from an expression or some computation, and then you can store it. So anytime I want to reuse X, so you see, I can even create a new variable from the computation from the earlier variables that I've created. Let's say I want a new variable called Y, and Y is equal to X plus, oh, sorry, say X plus 10. See, that also works fine. If I check the value of Y, it's there independent of X. And that's why we need variables. Okay, so you need a value and you need a reference to that value. All right, so basically those are, and there are many types of values. Okay, so you can have an integer value, let's say 1. Okay, you can have, and let me just write the type here for you. So this is an integer. Okay, in Python we just say it's an int. Okay, you can also have a floating point number. Okay, say 1.5. Okay, and in Python it's called a float. Okay, decimals. What else can you have? There are more data types, right? What about, even in mathematics we have complex data, right? How does a complex number look like? Yes, imaginary and real part. Okay, Python also acknowledges that. So you could have, say, 3j plus 5j. Okay, should it work? That's 8j, right? So complex numbers. So there are also complex numbers. In fact, let me use a proper name. So what I'm doing here, see the way I named those variables versus this one. Okay, so this is a keyword, complex. So let me call complex number. Okay, and it's 3j. See, so I've already showed you. What about if I want to type a letter to my friend? What kind of data would this be? Somebody help me. If I want to say, hello, my friend.
That's string.
It's a string, right? It's text as we call it.
String.
Okay.
String.
Yes. So this is also a type that we have a representation for. Okay, so let's say it's a message. And as for string, there's also a way that you need to represent it. Okay, we use the double quotation, or you can use a single quote to indicate that you have a string data. All right. I like double quotes, so let me just use that. Okay, so yes, and with this basic type, we cover most of the basic data types that we have, okay, that you can use in Python to do your computation. And from here to down here, you see that I've combined a certain way of naming variables. Usually the way you go about it, you want to make sure that your variables have a proper descriptive names, like the way I did when we're talking about the money, right? So I use good, see, you can combine words and use the underscore. So this is a valid character that you can use. You can't use a space. No, that's wrong. Okay, you can't include a space in your variable names. But instead of a space, you can use the underscore character to join words so that you have nice descriptive variables. Okay, so let's say we wanted this one to be more than one word. Maybe we want to call it love message. Then we can combine it like this. Now there is also another style where people can do something like this. And then, so when you see this, it's also another way. See, you use a camel case to break the words apart. And if it's longer, you can keep doing that. So it makes it easier for you yourself to remember why you created that variable, okay, what its information it contains, and you know, what you're going to use it for. So this is the cool thing about Python. Very, very easy to create variables. And if at any point in time I feel like, oh, I have finished using my Python, I want to change the message. Okay, so if you can see, let me run this line, just this line. Okay, if I check the value of love letter or its message, right? You can see it. At any point in time, I can say, oh, I want to change the value, okay, of love letter. So love message, oh, come on. I can come down here or somewhere else in my code. Oops. My IDE is being too smart. So that's the good thing from using an IDE. It can help you autocomplete. Okay, so you can reassign it. So everything that we've done here, this is not an equation like the regular mathematics. Okay, this is called assignment. Okay, we are basically naming the values. We are naming the values, and in programming in Python, we call it assignment. Okay, this is a general computer science concept. So that's what we have done. So we have talked about the variables, we talked about the values and value types. And if you are not sure, okay, Python has a way of letting you know the type of variable that you have. So let me just show you how you're going to do that. There is a keyword, okay, called type. Okay. And if you, in fact, it's a function. Okay, it's a function. If you want to see the type of any variable in Python, you can use that keyword. So what is the type of X, the variable here? Okay, just say we didn't know where X came from, but we wanted to text it in code to see what is the type of X. and it tells us that it's an integer, right? Okay, what about the type of y? It tells us it's a float. What about the type of complex? We know already, but just so that you are sure. And then the final one, what is the type of love message? And it tells us it's the string. So all these data types are officially recognized by Python, and you can use them in your work. Okay. Any questions at this point? Okay, I think for names and keywords, we've already seen them. Okay, there are a lot of keywords that and when you're, and a good thing with using an ID is that it will help you spot a keyword when you see one. Okay, so there's a keyword like and, there's a keyword like is, there's a keyword like del, and so many of them. Okay, so if you want to see more of them, you can use the help function here inbuilt into Python. Okay, and search for keywords. We already talked about them. You cannot use keywords as your variable names. Okay, we don't do that. It's an abomination. And it will put you into a lot of trouble in your code. So if you want trouble, please do that. So you can see there's a lot of them here. Some of them we've seen already. So for example, let me get out of here. And we've seen the keywords. So let's say there's a proper place to use them, but let's say true. Have we seen all? Let's think about this. Something is true, right? What if we want to say something is not true? What is the result? If it's not true, is what? It's
False.
false. So you can see these keywords in operation. Some of them are for logical operations, which even though we haven't come, the programming language makes it very easy to guess some of them, what they are being used for, right? And then there's a keyword which we have already seen in action, the if. Okay, and if x is greater than y, say something. Okay, and say maybe greater. See, we've already seen it in action. It didn't work because x is not greater than y according to this code. Okay, so these are them. They have their uses. Maybe one that you might find useful. I don't use it often though. You want to delete this from memory. You can delete it from memory. Let's see the variable explorer. You see, it's gone. So x is no more in memory. Okay, we can delete y also from memory. And if you check your variables, y is also gone. All right, so perhaps that's the use. At least use it to clear objects from memory. Okay, so these are the keywords. All right. And you have seen me use this pound sign here very often. Can you guess what it is for? Anybody can help? Can anybody guess what the pound sign is being used for? Oh, help me. Oh, nobody wants to help me. I told you I don't want to give a long lecture. I want to discuss with you. So help me if you know. Okay. So if you do not know, let me assume we do not know. Okay. So I use that to ignore code that will not be executed. All right. So anytime you see the IDE is giving me a warning. Okay. And if you hover on it, it should even show you the warning, but it says invalid syntax. Okay. And I can just delete this and make it keep quiet, or I can just comment it out. All right. And in my ID, I have a lot of nice ways to do that. I think, let me see. Oops. Yep. So now it's commented. So when Python sees it, it knows that it's there, but this is not code that it should run. So it's whether there's an error or not, it will keep quiet about it. So a good practice in coding is to add comments, okay? So that sometimes you write code and then you leave it for 2 days, you come back, you don't remember what it is that the code is about. So comment is one of the ways to save you from that predicament. And yeah, also to help others that are going to use your code, okay? So let me quickly, these are the easy parts, okay? You know what an operator is? If you've done a bit of mathematics, you're already familiar with what operators are, operands. Anybody can help me?
Operators are the signs like plus, multiplication, division, and the likes.
Exactly. Thank you. So again, I like to always refer you back to the help module. Okay, so it says to get a list of available modules, keywords, symbols, etc. Let's type and see. I want to get into the help. The reason I'm doing this frequently is so that you know where to get help. Next time you won't come and call me or send me WhatsApp. All right. So it says look for topics. Okay, let me go into topics. What are some of the topics in the documentation? And voila, there are a lot of topics in the documentation. One of them is anything beginning with O would be good for me. Can you see O? Who can see O? There's no O here, right? Assignments. Okay, I talked about assignments already. Comparison. Dictionaries, 6, formatting, functions, important. Operators. Okay, good. Let's see some of them.
Operators and objects.
Okay, nice. Thank you. Good. I struggled to see this. So let's check operators. Yes. So there are a lot of operators here. And let me just adjust my screen so that you can see how nicely it's been formatted here. So don't worry about the way it looks like. It's not as scary as it looks. Let me come to these ones. You forget about them. Let me come to the familiar ones. Okay. There is this operator. Okay, and the definition is here. It says it's used for doing exponentiation. So if you want to do, say, 2 raised to the power 2, okay, you need the exponentiation operator. Okay, so already oops. Okay, So let me say I have 2 and I want to raise it to a power 3. That should be 8. All right. So that's the exponentiation operator. What else do we have? We have positive, negative, bitwise operator. We'll come to those ones. Let me show you the common ones. There's the plus, there's the addition, there are shifts, bitwise operations. Not something of our interest right now, but we've seen this. See, it was a keyword, but it's also an operator. And later on, when we look at the collections, we will see what it's. Let me show you its use quickly so that you will be motivated to learn a bit more about it. Okay. So if you can see the black screen I pulled on the side here, just so that I leave the documentation open. So let's say you want to check for a character in your name. Okay, so is there the letter, say, C in the name? I hope I'm spelling it correctly. Okay. Is there C in it? It says there's no C in it. So this is a very, very powerful operator, the inclusion operator. Okay, and already if you are following what I've said in the past, you can see what you can use this for. Okay, sometimes you have a collection of data and you want to check whether something is inside it or not. This is the operator that you want to use it for. Okay, or you can do the reverse. If it's not in, then you can also do if it's in, or you can do if it's not in. So you can combine operators like this, and it's true. Indeed, C is not in. And you can try it by yourself and see. All right. So that's for the less than, greater than, the rest. We've seen them already. Less than or equal to, we've seen them. So this is it. And this is also another advanced usage. Maybe later on when we talk about objects, you would find this use more important. But now, maybe this one, and, okay, you can use it to check conditions, right? You can use it to combine conditions. See, Boolean operators. So let's say we have a variable. We want to check whether someone is sick. And we say it's true. Okay. And then we want to also check whether this sick person has money. It's true. Okay, before we give medical care, we want these 2 conditions to be true before we give medical care. So we can quickly write code and say that if the person is sick, okay, and maybe this notation or code might confuse you a bit, but just follow. If the person is sick and has money, okay, what do we do? Okay, very simple. We tell them they will get medical care. Okay, we tell them they will get medical care. Very simple, and they will be covered. Okay. Oh yes. So this is why you need a good ID. So I should have used the double quote. So this is another area. Forgive me. Okay. I will just write the full thing. Okay, good. Unnecessarily long, but then, okay, you see, so we want to combine 2 conditions. This one, I'll forget about it now. Later on, we'll see it. And then this is also another assignment. So there are many operators that you can use later on in your work. Okay, that I think you should expand. Now, operators and operands are very simple. Okay, when you have an operator, it works on operands. So this is just language. All right, this is just language. And like you learned in board maths or mathematics, the operators have a certain order in which they must execute. Okay, there's a certain preference. So for example, you need to be aware of this because they can give you weird results if you are not familiar with the order of things. So what do you think would be the result of this? As against this one? What should we expect here?
The first one is 10.
Let's see. And the second one?
The second one is 7.
7. Oh, great. In that case, you are ready to do a little exercise, don't you think? Yes, you're ready to do a little exercise. So let me see. Yeah, this is just a short one. That will be the last one. We won't do any more before. Okay, so try our hands on this. It's too easy. I shouldn't have even done this one. So I have started the question. If you can see, you want to try. It's too easy. Just finish it in 1 second. Are you trying it? Only one person has done. Okay, so I'm continuing. All right, good. Let me finish this. So quickly, I've covered these things here for us. And these are the easy parts, right? These are the easy parts. Okay. So a quick, we saw these things also in the code that I showed earlier. All right. So let me go over them again in the code. and let's see them in action. So again, if I'm just brushing over them this quickly, yes, you would actually have to put them in practice before you can see. There are a lot of nuances that go into the use of these operators, because now, number one, depending on what kind of data you're looking at, these operators might behave differently. Okay, so you'd be surprised, for example, that I could do something like this. Oops. Okay, you could do something like this. Are you surprised that it worked? Because you can see that I'm adding something that is not a number. And why should it work? Okay, so there's a lot more that goes into dealing with the use of these operators. Okay, so as we go deeper into the different data types, you would see certain behaviors, which of course has a name in the programming world. So let me go on and talk a little more about these things, which we have already seen in action. Okay, so decision making is very simple. We have seen it in action, and sometimes you need your code to branch in a certain direction based on certain test condition. And there are a couple of constructs that we use to make decisions in Python, as in many other programming languages, very similar constructs. And one of them is the if decision making. You've seen this keyword, and it's typically combined with an else statement to check for an alternative path. Okay, so in its simplest form, it can just be an if. Okay, if someone is sick, so let's say there is a condition here. This is a Boolean value. It indicates that someone is sick. Okay, so is the person sick or not? Okay, sick or not sick, you can do. And you can just do if someone is sick. So someone would ask me, why didn't I do if sick equals true? And Python has a way of just easing it out. Okay, it's basically saying test the Boolean value of this. So if you evaluate this, okay, sick is true. So what you are just doing is if true, right? So you're just substituting the value of sick here, and that's why I'm writing if sick. Okay, so someone could have said, oh, we should write if sick equals true, right? We haven't seen this one. This is a new one. Okay, it looks like it should work fine. Just print hi. Okay, it'll work. There's no need for that. You could just go if it's true, okay, or if it's false. Okay, so if sick, do something. All right, and that's it. Very basic. Okay, you could chain something on top of it, and let's say if someone is sick, do something here. Else, do something else. Oops, sorry, the keyboard is messing me up. All right, so what else are we going to do? Print to the screen. and say something else. So these examples are not exciting, right? But like in the code that we saw earlier on, an exciting use is when you have something like this and you're doing this sophisticated test. And this actual simple comparison here or test can begin to grow very big. Okay, so not only can you do this, but you can also check for multiple other branches. Okay, so if the person is sick, maybe the first thing we want to do is just let me just do something funny here. Let's say the pocket money we take. If the person is sick, we just add something to their pocket money. Okay, they have nothing. Okay, so if they are sick, add 200 to their pocket money. My intelligence is disappointing me today. Okay, so I'm introducing a new operator here, which was actually in the list that we saw, but I didn't talk about. It's a shortcut for writing something like this. Okay, I could have gone ahead and then do something like this, which is the usual way that we do, right? We do it plus 200. Okay. Or I can condense it into this form. Okay, so this is doing exactly what this is doing, with the advantage that I have saved myself typing this extra word. So I'll just leave the shorter version. Okay. But then what if there is another option? Okay, you could actually chain on top of it another test case. Okay, so what else can you test? So the person is not only sick, but let's say the person is homeless. Okay, this time they are not homeless. So if the person is sick, just give them well, they don't need money, they need healthcare. Okay, so maybe this time we're not going to give them money, but we're just going to give them healthcare, right? So we just say go to the hospital. But if they are sick and they are also homeless, then we do something more drastic. Okay, we take them to the hospital, whatever, we take them to the hospital, and then we also give them some pocket money. All right, is this working? Okay, there is no homeless. Fixed. So you can see how a simple if statement can grow and become complex by checking multiple pathways. And with this one, we can also check again another set of conditions and then do something else. And you can add more branching. So finally, you can, whatever it is that you want to handle here, you could also do this. So after all these test cases have been met, maybe you want to do something else, and then so this is how it gets. So this is one way an if condition can go. All right, so if we run this, would it run? Yeah, it says go to hospital. Okay, so this is the part that run. Okay, because homeless is false. Okay, what about if they are homeless? Then let's run and see. It says go to hospital. What are we missing? Okay, well, this is the only thing being printed to the screen. That's why, because the two responses are. So let's change it a bit so that we see where we are. Go to hospital and get cash in your pocket. Okay. Yes, it looks like it's the same thing running, but it's not. We are going. Hey, can anybody help me? I think I'm glossing over something. Who can figure out what's going on? So this is true. This is true. If you're sick and homeless, then do this. Else, it looks like we are not even getting to this part. What's wrong? Who can see it? Those of you who have some experience. Let me see if somebody can see. Is everyone here? Yeah.
I think we didn't assign if homeless gets cash in your pocket.
Let me see. Do we need to do any assignment? Just check the condition and then print to the screen. So this part is working. Okay. Then this time it says if sick and homeless. This is true. This is true. Is this variable correct? Okay, this is it. So the two are the same. Experience coder should help me. So this is not a syntax error. This is where we run into logical errors, right? So everything looks good on the screen. The computer is not complaining, but your code is not producing the correct output. So how do we figure out? Let me clear everything and see if I'm doing something wrong.
I think why we use elif, why not use else instead of elif?
Okay.
As in,
so this is,
I think I'm just thinking.
yes. Let me see. Yes, something simple is beating me and I cannot see it. Am I that tired? Okay. So what is it?
I said instead of elif, why not else?
Let's say we don't need this. The reason that you do this, okay, I mean, if you do else, then it's one way of capturing every other response. So you can see. It's one way of capturing every other response that is not the first one. So, oh yeah, sick is true. Maybe we are not thinking correctly. So, yes, you see, so if it's like this, the only way this part will be executed if this condition is so this part will capture everything else that this part is not able to capture. But what you want to do is you want to test multiple cases, then you have to use another test condition. Okay, so what conditions do we want to check? Okay, so maybe we are not actually structuring our logic well, and there's a problem with our logic. The reason being that anytime you see sick is true, it won't even go and check the next one, because you can see that sick here is true. All right, so this is a logical thing. We are not thinking properly about the problem. You see, the moment this condition, the first condition is true. So let me put it there so that you can see. Our time is up. I'm just going to round up soon. Okay, so what is going to happen is, as long as this is true, it would just execute the first part. It won't even go to the second part. You understand? So that's what is happening here. So it's a design problem that we have to now think about another way to, deal with. Okay, so when you're designing your solutions, a good understanding of this logical aspect will help you. Perhaps you just have to change the order in which we are doing the test, or we need to use a different, logic, to set up the testing scenario. But in any case, as our code stands, the first part will execute. It will always skip this portion until this is not true. Okay. And it doesn't make us see the power of elif, because it looks as if it's still just like just saying else. So see what is happening. Okay. You see this time, what is it? It's false. This is not executing. Let me run everything together. So dealing with actually logical evaluation of code can be very, very tricky, but it's a small problem here that needs to be fixed. Okay, so on this particular point, I'm just gonna stop here. It says there's a lot to look at when it comes to Boolean expressions. Okay, there's a lot of depth in it, how these Boolean expressions are evaluated and how they behave. Okay, and combining them with the logical operators can be a very powerful thing for making decisions and executing conditional branching in code. Okay, and there can be several layers where you can actually nest your if statements within other if statements. Okay, so these we would leave for our next discussion when we meet again. So folks, this is what I intended to do today, a quick brush up of the basics, and hopefully that it will lay the ground for more in later episodes. So at this point, I'm going to shut up and see if anybody has a question. Then I'll take them. In the next 5 minutes, I want to bring the session to an end. So let me hear from you. Did you find it useful? Questions?
Yeah, but I have a question.
Yeah.
When you, in a case of the first case of going to the hospital that you be treated, you wrote you will like with the inverted comma, but I was expecting you to use the reverse slash to indicate that so it will show.
Can you? I'm not sure exactly where you're referring to.
The first time you brought up the case of going to the hospital and be treated, you'll be treated when you go to the hospital. Not this one, not this case. The first time that you changed it because there was an error. So you reduced the print, the output.
Yeah. I think I remember I made a mistake somewhere. I don't know exactly what. If you can remember what the line says, that would be great.
Yeah, you wrote you will be treated. You the first the first statement you wrote was you will be treated like, instead of the later you will be cared, you wrote you will be cared for.
Ah, okay. When I was in the other place.
Yes, that was what I meant. So this is what I meant. So I meant instead of you should have indicated like the you should be like, the inverted comma should
Yes.
be the, so in case you might be in a need of using this form, and someone else will not, as in
Yes.
if you and
Okay.
not.
Very good. So actually, that one you needed to use a double okay, to take care of the double quote. Otherwise, it would see it as a because the quote is already a special character. Okay, so that was the problem. Solution is when you are using this, you want it to be part of your text. Then you cannot use the external one should be a double quote. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, great. Any others?
And I was thinking if there will be maybe an assignment, so you get just to, and you get a practice make perfection.
Okay, so I don't have an assignment set for today, okay, but what I can say is when you go to even the Python website, you could, or let me see, I'll share some resources on the WhatsApp page as well to just to summarize or give you some practice with what I've shared. But assignment will come later. Okay, proper assignments will come later. All right.
And please, when is our next meeting?
Next week, the second session would also occur. So if you have the time and you want to join, we would finish the basic coverage next week. As I told you, this is a quick, speedy thing to test yourself and see whether Python is for you before you even dive very deep into it. Okay, so at least by now you should already see how it looks like and the amount of work that you have to put in.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear.
There was a time I am running some, maybe like, I'm going through some personal training on my own, and I ran through some one of the functions, the input functions, right? I find it hard to understand how it works.
Okay, so are you on the platform, the WhatsApp platform?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. So it will be some of those problems and then contribute from there. Other people
Thank
can
you very
also benefit.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So folks, if there is no more.
Sorry, sir. I think you didn't talk about the last quiz.
The last quiz. Oh, okay. Yes, the first question, the character used to give single line comments is the pound sign. I talked about it earlier. And then yes, that execution, that code to it's supposed to be 5112. Okay, so it looked something like this. So it's both an exponentiation problem. If you do the evaluation, you should get 512. Okay, so that's it. We start from the inside, it's 9, 2 raised to the power 9. And then the last one is a modulo, all right? So it's supposed to be 4 plus 3, and then modulo 5. Okay, we didn't specifically talk about that, but again, that's 7 because it's 0 remainder 5. This is the modulo. It's how many times would this operand go into this, and then what will be the remainder? Okay, so it's the remainder is 7 because it's 0 times the remainder 7. So that's the last quiz we did. Okay, thank you all so much for coming. I really appreciate the time that we have spent here, and we are looking forward to making this bigger and bigger for all of us. So hopefully in our second episode, we will continue and dive deeper, but also give opportunity for you to finally decide on your journey. Okay, so I'm grateful for the time that you have spent here, and we can continue on the WhatsApp platform if you have any questions. With that aside, we'll see you in our next meeting. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, sir.